In this Remnant 2 video, we're going to be taking a look at the Dark Horizon, which is the final DLC for Remnant 2. That is coming in just about a week's time on September 24th for $9.99 USD. And in this video, I kind of want to go over what you're getting for that, what are some of the things that are involved in this DLC, and it's kind of broken down into two parts, really. First is what is included in the DLC itself, and the second is actually a free update that's coming with the game that you will receive regardless of whether you purchase the DLC. So first of all, let's take a look at what you get in the DLC, what are the things that are being added to the game, and then we'll get into the free update itself. So firstly, the most probably important or intriguing thing for players is the new archetype. The Warden is being added to the game, pretty standard for DLCs, you usually get one with him. And this is sort of a hybrid character that centers around using shields and preventing damage using its drone. And its drone actually has 3 different drones, so it can be set up in 3 different ways. You can have a shield drone, a healing drone, or a combat drone, so you can kind of pick which one of those you want to use and kind of set your build up revolving around that style. And something really interesting about the Warden besides the drone that it has is it has a new weapon called the Repair Tool, which can repair things, shockingly, but can also heal allies or give energy to your drone. So if you focus that beam on your teammates, for instance, you can heal them, making this, again, a great support class that can, buff and heal allies while also dealing damage simultaneously. So beyond the archetype or class that you're going to get, you're also going to have a new area with a new storyline in the world of Narud. This has historically been a very flat level. Players have complained at the base game that it was very flat and there wasn't a lot to the design of the world. But I think you'll see when looking at the gameplay here that it is definitely markedly different than you remember. And I actually think Gunfire Games took this personally when they heard this feedback and really challenged themselves to make a highly vertical space in Narud. And when you look at it, you'll see that right away. It's extremely vertical. You actually have a glider that was added to this area, and you're going to use it in steam vents to glide all over the place. I was even told that if you're co-oping, you each will have your own glider, and you can actually shoot your teammate off their glider, which I thought was hilarious because, you definitely troll your teammates sometimes in this game. I thought it was funny. But you'll definitely see a different side of Narud when exploring through this section, and it has more color. It's definitely a lot different of an experience than you'll typically remember from Narud, and I really, really enjoyed looking through this area. This is the largest map that they have made so far for Remnant, and it has definitely an open world feel to it. And something I really asked Gunfire when I was going through this level, because it was so open world, had this kind of almost like Zelda or action exploration feel to it that, you don't completely see in this form in Remnant typically. I asked them if they were planning on moving towards, an open world feel for maybe next projects and things like that, and they basically told me that they just like to try out a lot of things and see what the community thinks about it, and then make decisions going from there. So I think it's possible, depending on how the community receives this area of the game, which I think they'll love, they might incorporate more open world spaces in future projects. And beyond the new zone and the archetype that you'll have, you're obviously going to have new equipment and new bosses. The new equipment is going to change up builds and make them more efficient, allow for new types of builds, which is great. So there's a lot here in this DLC. For $9.99, I think this is probably a no-brainer for most people, considering most games these days you can get a skin for $9.99 if you're lucky, maybe $20. So definitely support Gunfire if you like Remnant 2. This is definitely worth it. But I want to talk about what's coming to the game also that's free, regardless of whether you're picking up this DLC or not, and maybe a reason to check out Remnant if you haven't in a while on September 24th. So first up is that there is now an item filter system added to the game for those of you that have trouble filtering through your loot, or you just want to see, for instance, maybe ranged damage or maybe critical hit chance or critical damage on your gear. So you can look through your gear quickly and find the things that you're looking for. Additionally, the Fragment system has a new UI, and they've actually removed a bunch of fragments and added new ones, making it easier for you to sort of identify what fragments that you want to add into your relics. So the next thing that's being added to Remnant, and this is a doozy in my opinion, this is a big one, is the Prism system. So this is kind of like what I was explained, more of like a Paragon system being added to Remnant, some way for your character to gain progression after it reaches max level. And what you're going to do is you're going to basically get these bonuses inside the Prism system, and they're going to be random, and you're going to slot them into one of 5 slots. Each time you're going to select one of 3 that gets provided to you, and eventually you'll have 5 bonuses, and then you'll just keep improving those 5 bonuses, and those are kind of randomized, so you won't know which ones you're always getting, and you're trying to pick the best ones based on your build for you. And as you continue to level higher in the Prism system, you're going to improve those bonuses by improving their percentage or whatever they're doing. And eventually, once you hit level 50 in this Prism system, you're going to gain one of 3 legendary buffs. Now, there's a pool of 40 legendary buffs. You're going to get prompted for 3 of them, and you're going to select one of those 3. So this is highly randomized, and it's going to vary significantly from player to player what you get. And you can keep leveling up more Prisms. So if you don't get the one you want, you'll go do another Prism, etc. But there are 40 or so legendary buffs, and these range from things like infinite stamina, or reloading one weapon reloads the other weapon. And we're talking about some game-changing buffs here. That's the way it was explained to me, that these things are going to drastically change the way you play in the game, depending on what you have. So they're going to give players a reason to keep playing, progression-wise after they hit max level. I think this is a really cool system, and it's definitely a way to keep players continuing to be engaged with Remnant 2 in a way that feels like they're making their characters stronger the more they play, rather than just farming for that one specific ring or whatever. They're going to also gain these at the same time, which I think will make things a bit more interesting and more fun for players to play. And another thing being added that's also free, and it's another big part of the free part of the update, is the boss rush mode. And this is something I sat and talked to Gunfire about at length. And it's probably misnamed, even by their own admission, that it's not as much of a boss rush mode as you would think, and there are other elements to it. In reality, boss rush mode is kind of a combination of a boss rush survival mode and a roguelike. You are going to be facing bosses, you're going to be surviving waves of enemies, and you're also going to be getting random bonuses after defeating each boss that will affect your character in some way. So it's kind of a mashup of these things. And they have 3 different options when it comes to boss rush mode. They have Triple Threat, which is just doing 3 bosses. They have Trial by Fire, which is 6 bosses. And then they have the Gauntlet, which is doing all 18 bosses. So there is different modes here, and you can kind of take on the amount that you want. And something really interesting about the boss rush mode as well is that you not only have a chance to get the boss weapon when defeating a boss, so if you don't have it already, you have a chance of getting it, but you also have a chance of getting a ring that you don't have that spawns on the ground. So one of the most difficult parts of Remnant is farming rings that spawn on corpses on the ground, as you'll have to re-roll world every time you get a ring and it's not the one you want, and it can take hours in order to find the ones you want. So again, what's really great about boss rush mode is that every time you defeat a boss in it, you have a chance to spawn one of these rings that would normally spawn on a corpse and loot it, but it's only ones you don't have. So if you're missing specific rings, this can be a really good way to farm those rings without having to re-roll worlds and enjoy the content that you're doing, rather than just having to keep playing the same world over and over and over again, trying to get that one drop. So this kind of wraps up the final update for Remnant 2, and you can tell they've kind of saved the best for last year. And Gunfire is always exploring what to add to their games to try and make them better. I really love that about them. They are constantly trying to improve and seeing what their community might like and what it might not like, and taking that feedback and really trying to improve Remnant 2. So I think it's probably a great time to pick up Remnant 2 if you haven't already. If you need something to play before other games come out later this fall, like whether it's Dragon Age or Diablo's expansion or Path of Exile 2 early access, this is definitely something that you can pick up and play in the meantime for not very much money and really get a lot of enjoyment out of it. So what do you guys make of the update? Is it not the best one so far? Are you guys excited for the new Warden Archetype? Let me know in the comments below.